adjust yourself up to the microphone. You don't have to speak directly into it.
Okay.
But I do need you to speak so that lady in the very back row over there can
Okay.
hear you.
Got it.
You understand that you're now under arrest for answers or sworn answers subject to penalty of perjury.
Yes, sir.
All right, you may proceed.
If you would, Olivia, introduce yourself to these men and women.
I'm Olivia Lieber,
And Olivia, where do you work?
Precise Mind.
And tell us a little bit about what Precise Mind is.
It's an outpatient mental health clinic, and we do research and mental health care for all ages.
Just to be clear, you're a little nervous today, right?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Is this your first time to ever testify?
Yes.
All right. How do you, and what is your role at Precise?
I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner.
And can you kind of tell us a little bit about what that is and what you do?
Yeah. I got a degree with a master's degree in advanced nursing practice. So I chose to specialize in psychiatric mental health. The nurse practitioner program requires 1,200 hours of clinical practice, and we have to do different specialty groups, have experience with different specialty groups like geriatrics, adolescents, outpatient, and inpatient psychiatry. So it's just a specialized nurse practitioner role, provider role.
And when did you do that?
That was 2.5 years ago, and I graduated in December 2021.
And have you been at Precise the whole time since then?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what is it that you do? I know you told us that you're a nurse practitioner there, but what is it that you actually do, like with patients at Precise?
Okay. We evaluate them and assess them, and we diagnose and then do medication management.
When you're evaluating them, is it important that they provide you accurate information?
Oh yes, very.
And why is that?
Because we base our diagnosis on that.
Did you have the opportunity to have a patient by the name of Carly Gregg?
Yes.
Do you see her in the courtroom?
I do.
Is she at the defense table?
Yes.
Olivia, I want to talk to you. Do y'all keep medical records of your treatment that you provide to patients?
Yes.
And did you do that with Ms. Gregg as well?
Mm-hmm.
May I practice witness, Your Honor? You can take that off if you need to.
Thank you.
After you what's been armed previously as State's Exhibit number 19, if you could take a minute and look at that and see if you recognize those documents.
Mm-hmm. Yes, these are my notes from her visits.
And again, why is it important that we have medical records?
Well, we can't remember everything that we've done, and just to basically keep a treatment plan of what we've seen, what we think is going on, and what we need to address, and then the plan that we come up with the patient and or parents.
Do you recall the first time that you met Carly Gregg?
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
That was January 15th,
Okay.
2024.
And prior to actually having an appointment with you and you being in the room with her, did she also fill out any paperwork or have any testing done?
They are required to fill out intake paperwork that have a few screenings and just demographic information.
Did you have Ms. Gregg do any additional screenings or questionnaires?
No.
And who has them fill out if you'll turn to base stamps number, it's 757, Olivia, in that.
Okay.
I'm looking at something called the Cardiac Screening Questionnaire.
Okay. Got it.
Kind of talk us through what that is and who has the patient fill out that form.
These are all sent to every patient. It's just like a whole intake packet, basically. If they're a minor, usually the parent does it. And this cardiac screening is mostly for patients that we're going to have on a stimulant or something that could affect their cardiac function.
And in your treatment with Ms. Gregg, you didn't really need much from the cardiac?
No.
Okay. Questionnaire. I want to take you to, looks like there is 2 pages after that. There's an adult ADHD self-report scale checklist. Mm-hmm. Is that similar in nature in that the patient fills that out before they ever meet with you?
Uh-huh.
Is that something that you review?
Yes.
I want to talk about just a couple of things on that page.
Okay.
Olivia, down in question 6, it says, how often do you feel overly active and compelled to do things like you're driven by a motor? And the response was very often.
Right.
Did you review that when you were rendering treatment to Carly?
Yes.
What about number 9 when she said she had difficulty concentrating on what people say sometimes? And she said often.
I see that.
Okay. And then if you'll turn back to the next page for me, 760, how often do you have difficulty unwinding or relaxing when you have time by yourself? And what did she say?
Rarely.
And what does that mean to you?
That this is just normal adolescent behavior. We have ups and downs at that age, and typically you can have a range of energy and or sleep disturbances throughout that age group, throughout life. So that just means that she has no trouble unwinding and relaxing, just what it says.
And then when you take the page before that, when she talks about being overly active and sometimes having concentration problems, did you take that to mean the same thing, just a regular teenager that has ups and downs?
Once I asked her more about possible ADHD, that was ruled out, so yes.
Okay. And so this is not your entire treatment of Miss Gregg,
Oh,
right?
absolutely not.
I'm going to ask you to keep looking. There's something called, Olivia, the modified Miniscreen.
Got it?
On the following pages, it's 761, 762, and 763. What is, if you can tell us, those of us that are not in the medical field, what the modified Miniscreen is?
This is one of the intake screenings that we do just to kind of identify, really to let the patient look at possible symptoms they could be having and then just answer yes or no to those so that we're made aware of them. I usually overlook these before the patient comes in, and just to kind of have an idea of what to ask about that I need to, focus on beforehand.
And if the patient responds yes or no, you would then ask some kind of follow-up questions.
Definitely.
When you're meeting with them. And did you do that specifically with Carly Gregg?
Yes.
I want to point you to the very last page of that document, question number 21. If you could read that for the ladies and gentlemen, what the question is and what Ms. Gregg's response was to that.
Have you ever heard things other people couldn't hear, such as voices? And she said no.
And what date was that was put in your system?
January 15th, 24.
2024.
Mm-hmm.
So, Olivia, you told us a little bit about the, and I think that most of us have been to the doctor's office, right? You have to fill out these forms, different places, different forms. You said you look over those forms. And then tell us about what you do kind of when you meet a patient for the very first time.
Okay. Usually I ask about kind of what brought them here, what their chief complaint is, so to say. And then I do a whole mental evaluation, and that includes sleeping and eating habits. For her age group, I would ask about social stressors, friend groups, if she has a good support system, a number of things, just to kind of narrow down what's going on.
And I want to talk specifically about Carly Gregg. When she came in, what were you told was the reason for her visit with you?
Depression and anxiety, and she had some social stressors.
And what did she describe those social stressors to be?
We talked about her childhood and kind of having not a great relationship with her dad, and an altercation with her mom recently. I'm going to refer to my notes.
Yeah, if you would, take a look at that and then tell us once you've had a chance to review that. And that's the note from January the 15th of 2024?
Yes. She said that she had started feeling depressed since 6th grade, and then the social stressors were her parents and their custody battle.
Did she also mention that she had a little sister that had died some years back?
Yes.
I want to ask you, it says that about midway down, it says she's in the 10th grade at Northwest Rankin, and she loves school and is the valedictorian.
Yes.
How did you get that information?
I was mostly asking about school in regards to ADHD and ruling that out. And so I asked her how school was, and she said she loved it. She's a great student, and she's a smart girl.
Did she tell you that she was the valedictorian?
Yes.
Would it surprise you to learn she wasn't?
No.
Okay. Let's see. She talked about, in your notes it says, talking about that she was in therapy previously.
Right.
What did you learn about the reason that she was in therapy when she was younger?
If I understood correctly, or remember correctly, it was based on the divorce court or custody court ordering her to go to equine therapy.
And who was that divorce? If you don't know, that's okay.
I think it was a custody battle between her dad and her mom.
Her biological dad.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up for us. And at some point, down at the end of the note there in your history, it says her mom says that she's been lying and talking to a guy on Snapchat on a burner phone, and she's hiding it from her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom made her cut him off after they found out she was cutting her thighs and taking sleeping pills.
Right.
Is that something that you remember discussing with Carly and Ashley Smiley that day?
Yes.
And at any point did Carly say, "No, I wasn't taking sleeping pills"?
Not that I recall.
And at some point after your evaluation with her and you're in there on that first day, was there discussions about maybe giving her some medicine to try to help with her issues?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
First, we talked about counseling, and that was definitely recommended. And then we kind of pointed out the priorities and what was getting in the way of her life the most and making things most difficult and what was a priority to address. And then we talked about medication options and what to start.
And what did you end up starting her on?
Zoloft.
And do you remember what the milligrams was?
25 milligrams daily.
And tell ladies and gentlemen just a little bit about, is that a lot of medicine? Is that a little bit of medicine?
No, that is that's a starting dose, and I'm usually conservative with my approaches, so that was just a normal starting dose for her age.
And is that one of the lowest dosages that you can actually prescribe?
Yes.
I want to walk you through, Olivia, I'm looking at page 744, so I want to make sure we're looking at the same thing, under behavioral health history.
Which page was it?
744 down at the bottom right. I'm still in your January 15, 2024.
Okay, one sec. Got it.
Down there it says, Carly had grown tired of counseling and wanted to stop. Do you remember them talking to you about that?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more?
After the equine therapy, she had tried other counselors that she wasn't necessarily happy with and stopped at some point.
And it actually even says down there, subsequent providers appeared far less impactful as Carly grew disillusioned with the courts.
Right.
Were those your words or something that they told you?
This portion was filled out by Ashley.
Okay. Thank you for that. I want to take you to the next page where you talk about mental status, exam, and risk assessment. And
Okay.
if you could tell us what that is and what you're looking for.
We're really just observing for any kind of abnormal behavior or things that stand out, like memory, attention span, they articulate well, if they're cooperative, and then mood, affect, if their judgment is sound, and if they have any presence of psychosis, hallucinations, delusions.
So I want to walk you through a couple of those for Carly on January the 15th.
Okay.
What did you report her psychomotor behavior to be?
Well coordinated, which is normal.
What about her speech?
Normal rate and volume.
She wasn't talking really fast or really loud. What about when you go to her about her cognitive abilities on that day? Can you describe for ladies and gentlemen what you said about her attention span and concentration?
They were all within normal limits.
Her orientation to time, place, and person.
She was oriented to all.
And so what does that mean?
That she's aware of where she is, who she is, and the date and time and situation.
What did Carly report regarding her recent memory, her ability to recall things?
That it was within normal limits.
And what about remote memory? So things that were not happening right at that moment, but kind of in the past.
Same.
Down a little further, you talked about her emotional state. Can you tell us what her mood and affect were?
They were during the appointment. It was normal and alert and oriented and appropriate.
Her judgment and insight that day, is that something you also took into consideration?
Mm-hmm.
And what did you determine to be Carly's judgment and insight?
Within normal limits.
I want to take you, Olivia, to there's a section in that assessment about thought processes.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us about what you observed and what your records indicate about whether or not Carly was having abnormal or psychotic thoughts on January the 15th, 2024?
She denied those.
And did she ever tell you that she was having those types of thoughts before January the 15th of 2024?
No, she denied hallucinations or delusions.
And what was your diagnosis of Carly from your encounter with her in January 15th of 2024?
Adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depressed mood, and then major depressive disorder, single episode, moderate severity.
So for those of us that are not in the medical field, will you break that down for
Yeah.
us and just tell us kind of what that means?
Sure. An adjustment disorder is basically just based on a stressful situation that might have happened that is their reaction to that. So it's pretty common, especially in her age group. So, and then I specify, there's a specifier that you can add that says with mixed anxiety or depressed mood. So I added that. And then major depressive disorder. And then you can specify single episode or if it's been recurrent, and then the severity, if it's moderate or severe or minimal.
And you put single episode. Can you tell us what you meant by that?
Just that it wasn't chronic that I was aware of at that time.
Okay. And so, and again, you're just able to render your opinions based off the information provided to
Right.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that appear to be, I'm sorry, there's actually another page to that. I want to talk to you about that before we move on.
Okay.
It talks about your clinical assessment and treatment plan, and we've already talked about what medication you put her on.
Right.
Tell us, there's another paragraph on that page that says SSRI slash SNRI slash TCA, and then it talks about patient warned of possible side effects. Can you tell us what that means?
This is just a warning for those drug classes that of possible side effects that could happen that I go over with all my patients.
And did you go over those side effects with Carly Gregg?
Yes.
And one of those side effects is self-harm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you tell them, if you're having thoughts of suicide, what do you need to do?
Go to the emergency room, call us, and stop the medication, or go to the emergency room if you are afraid that you're going to harm yourself or others.
And at any point between January and the next time you saw Carly, did she tell you that she was having any trouble with her medication?
No.
I want to talk about the next time that you had the opportunity to provide treatment to Carly. Was that on February the 14th of 2024?
Correct.
And the notes I'm looking at say that was a telemed.
Right.
And it was mom was present.
Uh-huh.
So tell ladies and gentlemen, what does that mean, telemed?
They just have the option to do in person or a Zoom call for their appointment.
And what did Carly tell you? There's sort of a history provided by the patient. What did she tell you about the medication she was on at that point?
That it had not really had an impact on her at that time.
And so kind of what was your discussion about? We're on 25 milligrams, and then what did you talk to them about?
How it's affected them, and if they've had any bad side effects, and if they have not, then, and it has not done anything like for her at that point, then we usually go up on it.
And I want to talk about those side effects because your medical records specifically say the patient denied SI, HI, and AVH. So if you could walk us through, what does it mean when it says patient denied SI?
Suicidal ideations.
And when she denied HI, what is that?
Homicidal ideation.
And what about when she denied AVH?
Auditory visual hallucinations.
So she's denying seeing things that other people don't see and hearing things that other people don't see.
Right.
Did she also deny any other side effects from the medication?
Right.
You did a mental assessment and risk assessment on Miss Gregg again on that day.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through that day? Was she oriented to time, place, and person?
Yes.
And did she report having any trouble with recent memory or remote memory?
No, not that I saw.
Down under thought processes, did she report having any abnormal or psychotic thoughts?
No.
And again, on page 3, in the records, it talks again about these SSRIs, and I think I failed to ask you, Olivia, is Zoloft an SSRI
Yes.
medication?
Mm-hmm.
What does SSRI mean?
Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and that's the drug class for Zoloft, and that just means that it increases the available serotonin in the synaptic.
And what is serotonin?
It is a neurotransmitter that most people call the happy neurotransmitter, and it affects mood and sleep.
So when you put somebody on an SSRI, the goal is to try to make them a little bit happier.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Hence the antidepressant medication is
Yes.
going to help depression.
Yes.
And it says that, again, the patient was warned of any side effects.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall if you specifically went back over that with them?
I don't recall.
Okay. Was that the you had a telemed conversation with them? Carly discussed that she didn't feel the medicine was really doing anything to her, so you decided to up it to
Right.
50 milligrams.
Mm-hmm.
Was there an opportunity that you had to see Carly after that?
Yes, one more time.
One more time. Okay.
Mhm.
And was that in person or was that telemed?
That was telemed as well.
And the records that I have been provided show that you saw her on March the 12th
Right.
of 2024.
That's right.
Could you tell us about what was relayed to you by Carly on the 12th?
She said that the medication was making her feel like a zombie.
And what was your discussion with them once she stated that she kind of felt zombie-like?
I never want that for any adolescent. So, we definitely were not going to increase it, and we just decided to go ahead and switch it to a different medication so that she didn't have that flatness and take away her personality.
When you talk about switching the medications, did you tell her to stop taking the Zoloft? Tell us about what your recommendation was.
I recommend tapering off so that you don't have any kind of discontinuation syndrome, which is a possibility, or rebound symptoms. So I told her to take 25 milligrams of Zoloft for 10 days and then stop it, and then start the Lexapro for 5 milligrams at the same time.
I want to back up. Again, I'm not in the medical field, so I want to make sure that tapering off means the same thing, I think.
Okay.
So she's on the 50 milligrams.
Right.
And then you want to put her on 5 milligrams of Lexapro.
Simultaneously as going down on the Zoloft.
So the Zoloft, you're saying, like, come down a little bit of this
Right.
while we're taking this so that you don't just get off all the medicine.
Right. Weaning off.
And you said something about to rebound effects, to prevent rebound effects. What does that mean?
If you have a discontinuation syndrome, if you stop your medication abruptly, there's always a risk for symptoms to come back, maybe worse, and then other things that just are uncomfortable whenever you're withdrawing.
And you don't know when you prescribe people medication whether they're adhering to your recommendations or not. Do you?
No.
At any point during that evaluation with Miss Gregg, did she report that she was hearing voices?
No.
In fact, I think the very last line you said, again, she denies SI, suicidal ideations, that she denied homicidal ideations. Is that right?
Right.
And that she denied AVH,
Auditory visual hallucinations.
And you also did a mental status exam and risk assessment of Miss Gregg from that day.
Right.
And I'm looking at your records, Bates stamps number 754. Could you tell us what your findings were with regards to whether or not Carly Gregg was oriented to time, place, and person?
She was still oriented within normal limits.
So again, she knew where she was, she knew who she was, she knew the time.
Correct.
Her recent memory, what did you determine?
It was normal. Intact.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm sorry. It's intact.
At any point in your providing treatment to Carly Gregg, did she tell you, I'm having memory problems?
Not that I recall, no.
Did she ever tell you about any blackouts, any lapses in time?
No.
You go down and you talk about her judgment on that day. Could you tell us what your findings were with regard to that?
Within normal limits.
And her thought process rate?
Normal rate and rhythm.
So if you would, I don't think I'd asked you about that, Olivia, before now.
Mm-hmm.
So she had said on her questionnaire there were like some racing thoughts sometimes.
Right.
But when you observed her, what does her thought process rate was normal and in rhythm mean?
That it was not racing.
And that was the same on all 3 times that you had come in contact with her?
Right.
And then she also, you had questions and reported in your records that there have been no thoughts of abnormal or psychotic thoughts. Is that correct?
Right.
So to be clear, at no point in the 3 times that you treated Carly Gregg did she report hearing voices.
Right.
At no point did she report that she was having lapses in memory.
Correct.
Did she ever use the word derealized?
No.
She never described herself as feeling derealized?
No.
Did she ever use the word disassociation?
No.
Are those words that people typically use when you're treating them as patients?
Not typically, no.
Those are more like clinical terms?
Right.
Court's indulgence. No further questions, Your Honor.